Hey guys, I'm Chris Buck and a very warm welcome to Friday Fretworks, and this week we're taking a look at a rather obscure part of Fender's history. Guess you could think of it as the Telecaster's older but much less successful brother. We're of course talking about the Esquire. The year is 1949, and despite being yet to put his name to an actual guitar design, Leo Fender is already making waves, having released a series of successful amplifiers, namely the Princeton, Deluxe and Professional, all of which were squarely aimed at the lap steel players of the day. But it was perhaps to be a twin-neck steel guitar designed for one Noel Boggs of Bob Will's Texas Playboys Western and Swing Band that would set the wheels in motion of what was to ultimately become one of the most identifiable and iconic instrument designs of all time. Now, contrary to conventional wisdom, the slab body of that steel guitar confirmed Leo Fender's suspicions that not only would a solid body electric guitar work, but had the capacity to sound fantastic, and thus he set about designing prototypes, the first of which, dating back to 1949, is crude but still, amazingly so, instantly identifiable. And over the next few months he would continue to refine the idea, save for a couple of kind of key changes, principal among which is a change from 3 aside tuners to what are now synonymous with Fender guitars the world over, with those 6 inline tuners. Fast forward to July 10th, 1950 in Chicago, Illinois, at the Summer NAMM show, and Leo unveiled his revolutionary new design to the world, Fender's new Spanish-style electric solid body guitar, the Esquire. Now, clearly still very much in its developmental process, that first Esquire, the very same that Leo himself photographed for Fender's catalogue way back in 1950, was not only missing a Fender logo, the logo you can see in the catalogue was actually an artist's rendering that was added later on, but was also missing a truss rod. This was soon to be rectified, but at the time, of course, meant that adjustment of the neck of any kind was an impossibility. Also, the now ubiquitous 3-way toggle was missing, and in its place, actually the circuitry from a lamp switch to control the guitar's electronics. And it's almost testament to the fact that, albeit well-intentioned, the idea was somewhat half-formed, that the initial response to the Esquire at NAMM in 1950 was decidedly lukewarm. A canoe paddle, a snow shovel, and a toilet seat with strings were some of the reviews that came from that show. Clearly unfazed and determinedly driven by the idea of a commercially available electric solid body guitar, Leo persevered and consulted those whose opinions could make this work. Guitar players. Thanks to Fender's success within the amp world, Leo had what you could kind of think of as a ready-made focus group, and it's testament to the great store in which he put in their opinions that literally within a matter of weeks, the Esquire was infinitely more fully formed. Now, of course, with a Fender logo, but also a truss rod, an ash body, volume and tone controls, and of course the now ubiquitous 3-way toggle, which for a single pickup guitar is still of great mystery to so many. Its configuration essentially boils down to Leo's vision that a single pickup guitar was still capable of covering both bass, rhythm and lead work. In the down position on that toggle, it's essentially the pickup wired straight to the output jack, whereas the middle position it runs via the tone control. In the up position, we have what is kind of colloquially known as the dead tone, in case a guitarist needed to venture into bass guitar territory at any point. Of course, remember for context, the P bass still another year or so away at this point, not being released until October of 1951. And although many people are quick to point out that bottom position being wired straight to the output jack does give you a slightly hotter, more wiry sound, I think Leo's vision here was almost 3 presets. That dead tone with the bass rolled all the way, or the treble I should say, rolled all the way off. The middle position for rhythm work with your tone control set accordingly. And then the bottom position for lead work when you needed a little bit more output and a little bit more bite. Now, despite the new updated Esquire undoubtedly being a huge improvement on what was ostensibly a prototype that was displayed at NAMM in 1950, it wouldn't be too long until another very common player suggestion would work its way into the equation, that of course being the second pickup. Now, it is funny to think that a very small number of dual pickup Esquires did actually escape the Fender factory, but presumably because of the confusion with the single pickup version, they were swiftly renamed the Broadcaster. And back in 1951, an Esquire would set you back $149.95, while the Broadcaster would set you back $189.95, roughly $1,600 and $2,000 in today's money. Now, famously, Gretsch objected to the use of the name Broadcaster, of course having a drum kit of the same name, so save for a brief period of what are now known as no-casters. Famously thrifty, Leo was literally cutting the Broadcaster name from the decal and reusing them on the headstocks of the guitar. It was to be in August in 1951 that the Telecaster name would finally be attached to the dual pickup version. Thus, history was made. The Esquire would remain in production until 1969, well after CBS takeover of Fender, essentially marketed as a kind of budget-friendly single pickup version of the much more successful Telecaster. Although interestingly, underneath the pickguard of the Esquire, it's interesting to see that every Esquire was actually ready-made routed for a second neck pickup should the user or buyer want to upgrade to Telecaster specs at any point. And that is very much the case with today's example, this beautiful 1962 Esquire, very kindly loaned to me by ATB Guitars here in the UK. Super lightweight, super original, and with that coveted slab rosewood board being an earlier model from 62, yours for a snip at just £22,000 if you're feeling flush. Despite the Telecaster's overwhelming success, there have been any number of incredibly famous Esquire players over the years. One particularly notable early adopter, of course, being Steve Cropper, who put his to great use on not only Booker T and the MG's Green Onions, but Otis Redding's Dock of the Bay. Paul McCartney bought a 1964 Esquire with a rosewood board at some point in the mid-1960s and put it to great use on the Sgt. Pepper sessions, notably the solo on Good Morning, Good Morning, and of course Jeff Beck's particularly famous 1954 model that at some point in its life had been crudely stratified with that added top contour. Syd Barrett was another prolific Esquire user, as was his successor in Pink Floyd, David Gilmour, whose 1955 model had already been fitted with a Stratocaster neck pickup by the time that he bought it from Seymour Duncan in around 1975. Brian May used an Esquire on Crazy Little Thing Called Love, but probably the most famous Esquire in existence has to belong to the boss, Bruce Springsteen, whose 1952 model that he bought in 1973 for $180 then proceeded to use for the next 4 decades of his career, most famously on the cover of Born to Run. Ultimately, the Esquire may not be as famous or as versatile as the Telecaster, but without the Esquire, we wouldn't have had the Telecaster, and if it wasn't for the Telecaster's success, we certainly wouldn't have had the Stratocaster. So it really isn't a stretch of the imagination to think of the Esquire as kind of the godfather of solid body electric guitar, certainly the one that started it all in my book. As ever, I'm Chris Buck, you're watching Friday Fretworks. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, hit the bell icon if you haven't already, and I'll see you next week for another episode. Cheers guys, take care, I'll see you soon.